Ooh, what's up, everybody? My name is OMG WTF LOF to WBRB, and welcome back to day 6 of the week of WrestleMania. Today, just gonna let you guys know really quick, it's gonna be another one of those videos where you could always just put the tab down and listen to me talk, because today's video is going to be the too long didn't watch. And if you aren't really sure what that means, if you've ever heard of the phrase too long didn't read, TLDR, meaning like an article or whatever, a book, anything, it's just pretty much too long and you didn't want to read it. So it's someone's giving you, like, you know, the basic synopsis of it. And that's kind of what this is. I understand that throughout this entire InVasion series, we've recorded upwards toward, you know, maybe like 150 episodes. I don't remember off the top of my head, but we definitely have broken 100 here. We've gone well beyond 100, and these episodes aren't short either. They're at least 30 minutes long, at least, usually. Like, so you're looking at least a half hour to probably an hour sometimes of video content. So it'll take you a while to catch up to the entire series, especially up to this point. So this is kind of for that this video is for those fans out there who, you know, missed out on the InVasion, don't want to go back and watch all the InVasion, but would like to know what happened in the InVasion. So that's what we're going to cover here. I'm not going to be covering all little small things and all that, like what happened with the tag team titles and the women's championship. It's mostly going to be the main InVasion storyline that's going on. If you want to know all the little things, you'll have to unfortunately go back and watch those for yourself. I will be showing off all the pay-per-views while I'm doing this, so if you want to use that opportunity to look at the undercard to get an an idea of what some of the undercard talents were doing, you feel more than welcome to. But I've written up a script for this, so I'm just kind of going to be reading off of that. And like I said, it's primarily the major story, like the InVasion itself. Nothing really straying away from that too much. Also, if you you just need a refresher of what happened on the InVasion, you're not sure, might have missed something, this is your chance as well. But before we get into the InVasion, or excuse me, the too long didn't watch InVasion thing, we are going to induct some people into the Hall of Fame. Now, the Hall of Fame's a new feature here in Total Extreme Wrestling 2016. There was the Hall of Immortals in the previous game, but I don't believe you got to choose who went into that. That was the game who chose that, and it was really just kind of like the entire wrestling world Hall of Fame, not an individual Hall of Fame for a company. This year, they introduced things like individual Hall of Fames for companies, to where you can, pretty much induct anybody you want. You can always check to see who's eligible for inductions, and superstars who have, headlined pay-per-views, have held world championships, tag team championships, intercontinental championships, so on and so forth. They're always eligible. But I went ahead and did my own class of 2002. WWE actually didn't do a Hall of Fame induction ceremony for 2002, so there wasn't any way for me to kind of be like, oh, this is what they were doing, so this is who we'll induct in. So I just kind of went ahead and made my own list. So our headliner of the year is going to be Roddy Piper. Didn't want to put people like Hulk Hogan or someone, but still respect the past. So I thought Roddy Piper would have been one of those better choices from the past, helping WWE really earn its stripes pretty much with WrestleMania and being one of those early headliners for them. Representing the women's division will be Mae Young. I don't think I need to list Mae Young's accomplishments. I mean, she's the longest reigning women's champion in history. Now, granted, there's a little bit of an asterisk next to that nowadays here in 2018. Guarantee, knowing what we know now about Mae Young, or what's presumed to be believed about Mae Young nowadays. But back in the day, 2002, that stuff really wasn't known, and I'd still argue, despite Mae Young's her treatment of people in the past, despite all that, I'd still argue that she's a Hall of Famer in my opinion. I feel like we need to separate the wrestlers from their personal lives, and that's why I'm a strong advocate for someone like Chris Benoit getting in the Hall of Fame, because yes, what he did was atrocious and just disgusting, but you got to learn to separate those guys, and Benoit, he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, multiple time world champion, world champion in WCW, the WWF, won the Royal Rumble, made a name for himself in Japan as the Pegasus Kid. I mean, no matter what Benoit did, I feel like he's just, he's at least earned the respect for his career, at least. So, anyway, Legacy Award, kind of meaning like, those people who have been pretty much wrestling longer than the WWF, like, even though I would say Roddy Piper has been doing that as well. But this is kind of like those guys who, like, were legends before the WWF. Like, when WWF was all, Hulk Hogan and all of them were building their names, everyone knew who Harley Race was. So, that's kind of what the Legacy Award is for. Outside the WWF, kind of my excuse to put in the Great Muta, but also it's kind of like that honoring those superstars who made a name for themselves outside the WWF as well. Tag team, pretty self-explanatory, just a tag team from WWF's history. Great Muta and Arn Anderson were actually selected because they both passed away this year. The Great Muta passed away. I'm not going to actually, I was going to tell you guys when, but I don't remember when. But the Great Muta passed away, and so did Arn Anderson, so we are honoring their memories here tonight by inducting them into the Hall of Fame. And then the Employee of the Year, which in my mind is what's the Ultimate Warrior award supposed to be, is kind of that award that, honors those superstars who weren't wrestlers in the ring, but really dedicated a lot of their time and made a name for themselves outside of the ring, outside of the wrestling ring. Superstars like Jimmy Hart, who is going to be our inductee this year. He's a manager. You can do managers like Bobby the Brain Heenan. You can do referees, announcers. Anybody who's a non-wrestler who's had a role in wrestling kind of fits under this role. So without further ado, let's induct our class of 2002. I might have to keep going back and forth to this. I might be able to remember them all off the top of my head, but I might not at the same time. So, joining Andre the Giant, Bob Backlund, Buddy Rogers, Freddie Blassie, George the Animal Steel, Gorilla Monsoon, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Johnny Rods, Killer Kowalski, Lou Albano, Pat Patterson, The Fabulous Moolah, and The Funks. By the way, I messed up. It was The Fabulous Moolah who has the controversy behind her, not Mae Young. My apologies. But joining all our previous inductees into the Hall of Fame, ignore the fact that it says 2001. That's not true. But that's probably when Great Muta passed. No, he passed away in July 2001, because that's when I inducted him. I inducted Muta a little early, so we'll just say the Great Muta was our first inductee. Let's go ahead and let's add in Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart going to be inducted now because of all his stuff that he's done in the past. So welcome to the Hall of Fame. Did he go in there? I didn't see it. Oh, okay. It adds it afterwards. So Jimmy Hart's now in the Hall of Fame, and now we will induct, let's see. Tag team? Yeah, let's do the tag team. I gotta do add tag team, so let's go here. So let's induct the tag team of Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. I believe that's who it was. So go ahead and induct these two. Wait, what? Oh, okay, it says they have been inducted. I was confused for a second. Does it say the Brainbusters? That would be cool. Oh, there they are, Arn and Tully. I was like, does anybody see Arn and Anderson and Tully Blanchard? It was Tully though, right? Okay, good. All right, let's do Harley Race next. I wish it would say the Brainbusters, but what can you do? What can you do? Oh no, we don't want to do that. That's okay. So Harley Race. Let's do Mae Young. And then it was Roddy Piper, but I feel like oh, no. Are we missing somebody? No, it was okay, Roddy Piper was the last one. I thought maybe there was someone before Mae Young. And then finally the headliner of the night, Hot Rod Roddy Piper. So, let's go ahead and put that in there. Roddy Piper. So there we have it. 2002 Hall of Fame inductees, the Brainbusters, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, former tag team champions of the WWF. Harley Race, former King of the Ring and a WCW United States champion. In fact, I think Harley Race might be the first ever United States champion, if I remember correctly. Jimmy Hart, longtime manager of the WWF, managed the likes of Hulk Hogan, the Hart Foundation, Honky Tonk Man, the Quebecers, you name them, he most likely managed them. Keiji Muta, a.k.a. The Great Muta, never wrestled in WWF, but he wrestled in WCW, won the World Tag Team Championships and World Television Championship over there, and a Japanese legend in his own right. Mae Young never won the Women's Championship, but she's been a focal point of the WWF for years, gave birth to a hand, and she's just one of the great women's of, the past as well, even before the WWF. And then we got Hot Rod Roddy Piper, 3-time WCW United States Champion, 1-time WWF Intercontinental Champion, headlined WrestleMania against the likes of Hulk Hogan, Mr. T, Bret the Hitman Hart. Roddy Piper has definitely earned this induction here tonight. Plus, it kind of ties into, his WCW things. It's one of the things I also kind of wanted to tie into is try to get people who also kind of have a WCW background as well. So it's kind of like they're welcoming home, So with that being said, I'm going to jump into the show history here, and I'm going to go all the way back to 2001, and I'm going to highlight our first pay-per-view, Judgment Day, and I wonder if there's a way for me... Okay, I'll just have to scroll up, I guess, halfway through or whatever, so you guys can see the whole card. But anyway, this is going to be the Too Long Didn't Watch. Originally, I had planned for this to kind of be talked over the Fire Pro live stream that we did last night, but honestly there was a lot of technical issues with that live stream, and yeah, it just didn't go down as well, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on, probably, who knows. So anyway, I present to you guys the InVasion Too Long Didn't Watch. On March 26, 2001, Shane McMahon shocked the world when he revealed to his father in the middle of the ring on an episode of Raw that while the signature on the WCW buyout contract read McMahon, it read Shane McMahon. At the end of the day, making Shane O'Mac the sole owner of his father's greatest competition. Their first step in the son's plans to get revenge on his father. And while we were all led to believe that it was to make his father pay for the pain he had caused his mother, but in time, we would find out that the young McMahon had a much more sinister plan in place. After his victory at WrestleMania, Shane McMahon disappeared and left his father and the WWF alone for now. Because in the background he was making investments and hirings. For what? Well, for a war. For an invasion. And on the first Raw of May of 2001, an invasion is what the WWF got. As Mr. McMahon strutted to the ring, having heard the rumblings of a possible WCW revival, he called out his son to confront him and belittle him, calling this revival of his rival a joke. And it was at this moment that Shane revealed he hadn't come alone, as WCW representatives Booker T, Buff Bagwell, and the Natural Born Thrillers took the first strike, but it was The Rock who came to Vince McMahon's aid, proven to be a constant thorn in the side of WCW, as on the next episode of SmackDown, The Rock opens the show with an open challenge to Shane McMahon to pick his poison and give him a WCW star. And for the first time ever, we make history and we see WWF versus WCW on TV as Buff Bagwell steps up for the fight. Meanwhile, WCW talent are making their presence known in the backgrounds, with attacks on WWF talent like The Big Show, the Hardy Boys, and even The Rock after his match against Buff. But this time, The Big Show and Chris Jericho came to save The Rock, and despite Jericho's assistance, Rock was very hesitant to trust him. But not everyone was tied up in this WCW invasion, as Kurt Angle was on a mission to prove that he's better than Chris Benoit, while the Brothers of Destruction had their eyes on the two-man power trip and the gold they carried around their waist. It was on the next episode of SmackDown that WCW made history, as the first WCW superstar to capture a WWF championship was Lance Storm, when he challenged and then defeated Matt Hardy to capture the WWF European Championship, a title that he would not only rebrand to the Canadian Championship over the next couple of months, but a title that he would defend proudly against any and all comers up until this year's WrestleMania. Judgment Day was the first WWE pay-per-view to take place during the invasion, and history was made once again as for the first time ever, the WCW World Championship was defended, with with Booker T retaining his championship over The Rock, with little help from former three-time champion DDP, who made his WWF debut that night. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll up a little bit more here, give you guys a little bit of a view of what else happened on Judgment Day. And then I am going to scroll forward to our next pay-per-view here, which will be SummerSlam. So go ahead and you guys can take a look at SummerSlam while I continue on with reading this. I can probably keep the pre-show out, so there we go. The next night on Raw, Rock opens up the show by calling out the man who cost him the WCW World Championship, Diamond Dallas Page. And it is then when Page reveals that he wants to go one-on-one with the Great One in a People's Champion versus People Champion at SummerSlam. It's also on this night that we find out that the next WWF superstar who will challenge for the WCW World Championship, and despite Shane's resistance of having his title defended again, Vince plays to Shane's ego of having the WCW defended at SummerSlam, one of the big 4 pay-per-views of the WWF. And then when Chris Jericho beats the Big Show to earn the #1 contendership for Booker T's world title. Jericho proved to be in Booker's head over the next couple of weeks, even going so far to cost Booker T the WCW United States Championship in a match against Kurt Angle, another historical moment when Kurt became the first WWF superstar to hold a WCW championship. On the first Raw of June, Shane dropped the bombshell on his father when he revealed that he has signed former WCW World Champion, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, to assist him in taking down his father. Flair knew his father very well from a business sense, and right away, Ric Flair quickly aimed to steal Kurt Angle away from the WWF by offering to take him under his wing. But little did Kurt know at that moment that Flair had other plans for the Olympic gold medalists. Meanwhile, the two-man power trip is no more as Triple H has made his intentions clear to become the WWF champion. And he and Austin were set to face off at SummerSlam for the championship, and in order to get the Brothers of Destruction out of their way, Stephanie made a deal with the newly reformed Test and Albert, which would lead the team to getting a shot at the WWF Tag Team titles at SummerSlam, which they would come up short against. Also at SummerSlam, Rey Mysterio would make his first appearance in the WWF, winning and merging the WCW Cruiserweight Championship and Light Heavyweight Championship. Farouk would turn his back on his longtime partner Bradshaw after he just beat WCW's Canyon to recapture the WWF Hardcore Championship from WCW. Ron Simmons would later damn the name Farouk and turn his back on the WWF to join WCW under his birth name, Ron Simmons. Ric Flair revealed his true intentions on this night as well as he turned his back on Kurt Angle and aligned himself with Chris Benoit, making Benoit both the WWF Intercontinental and United States Champion, and also revealing that Benoit was just the latest superstar to jump ship over to WCW alongside Ron Simmons. The Hardys would win the WCW Tag Team titles. The Rock beat DDP in the first match between the two, and while Booker T and Stone Cold managed to defend both their titles against the challenges of Chris Jericho and Triple H. So again, I'm just going to scroll up a little bit here, let you guys get a quick look at King of the Ring, see all the ratings and whatnot, and then I'm going to move up to our next pay-per-view, which is going to be InVasion, I believe. Yep, there it is. So there's InVasion. Let me go ahead and scroll down for you guys as well. I wish I could show the whole damn card. Anyway, the next night on Raw, we officially found out that Farouk and Benoit had jumped shit over to WCW, but despite a war going on, Mick Foley is tired, and he's ready to call it quits and go and be with his family. And this is when William Regal steps up for take the offer for Foley's place. Secretly, he had an ulterior motive in the back of his head that would be revealed when he was officially crowned the new commissioner of SmackDown the next night, pretty much. When Regal turns on Mr. McMahon and aligns with Shane McMahon in WCW. But also, on this night, Stone Cold Steve Austin defended his WWF Championship against a young upstart in Rhino. And Rhino would impress Stone Cold so much that a new partnership was born between the two as the Texas Rattlesnake took the Human Wrecking Ball under his wing. The next pay-per-view was the InVasion pay-per-view, and with WCW in control of SmackDown, a deal is made. A huge 5v5 tag team match is planned between the WWF and WCW, with the stipulation being that if WWF wins, WCW disbands. But if WCW wins, SmackDown becomes Nitro. With The Rock leading Chris Jericho, Big Show, and the Brothers of Destruction into battle against WCW's team of Booker T, Diamond Dallas Page, Chris Benoit, Ric Flair, and Ron Simmons. During the build, we saw the teams at odds, Shane McMahon playing up that there could be a mole on Team WWF. Blame was placed on either Jericho or the Giant, given their past with the WCW. And on the WCW side, Diamond Dallas Page and Booker T would battle over who should lead Team WCW, even over the WCW World Championship at one point. Booker T, of course, would retain the title. Meanwhile, Kurt Angle, who had previously turned his back on Vince McMahon and the WWF, has been lobbying and trying to earn his way back onto the roster and into Vince McMahon's good graces, wanting to get him his own revenge on Ric Flair and WCW. On the Sunday Night Heat before the Invasion pay-per-view, Kane was attacked beforehand, taken out of the main event, and while The Undertaker believed it to be the Big Show, Mr. McMahon refused to believe Shane's bluff, and despite hesitancy from the majority of the team, Kurt Angle was added to the team as a last-minute entry. Also, at the Invasion, the Steiner brothers made their shocking return to the WWF by attacking the Hardy Boys, and in the main event, Team WCW, God, I'm having a hard time saying this one. Team WCW beats the Team WWF after the Big Show proves the Undertaker right when he turns his back on the WWF to help WCW to get the rights and the property to SmackDown. The next night on Monday Night Raw, hold on, before we do that, let me go ahead and just showcase you guys a little bit of the Invasion pay-per-view. There you go. And then we'll move over to our next pay-per-view, which will be the King of the Ring. So there you have that. Okay. So anyway, like I was saying, though, the next night on Raw, if I can find where I was, the Big Show reverts back to his old WCW name as The Giant, and Shane McMahon changes SmackDown's name to WCW Nitro, and announces that WCW will compete in this year's King of the Ring. The Undertaker also makes it his mission to get revenge against the man who took out his brother and cost WWF the victory last night, that being The Giant. And as we build up to the King of the Ring, it is revealed that for the first time ever, the winner of the King of the Ring tournament will get a World Championship match at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Once at King of the Ring, Edge beats his longtime tag team partner Christian to meet Chris Benoit in the finals of the King of the Ring, who previously beat Kurt Angle once again to move on to the finals as well. But the night proved to be WCW's night as the Giant walked away victorious against The Undertaker. The Steiners beat the Hardy Boys to take back the WCW tag team titles, and Chris Benoit beats Edge in the finals to win the King of the Ring and pretty much click his ticket onto the road of WrestleMania. In the main event against... Oh, hold on. I skipped a whole spot. And while Austin managed to hang on to the WWF title with a little help from his new protege of Rhino against Triple H, it was Booker T who ended up stealing the show in the match of the night when he defended his WCW World title. And the main event of all things, by the way. First time WCW Championship defended in the main event. But anyway, when he defended the WCW World title against The Rock, Diamond Dallas Page, and Chris Jericho. So again, going to give you guys a little bit of a look at King of the Ring. King of the Ring, actually, I wasn't lying. They definitely stole the show that night. But we're building towards Unforgiven next. So as we build towards Unforgiven, Austin finds himself in a fatal four-way match, as Triple H refuses to let Austin walk away as the world champion, while both The Rock and Chris Jericho look to also capture the WWF title, and use it to lead the WWF against Team WCW. Undertaker promises the end the Giant inside the Hell in a Cell, and Paul Heyman makes a deal with Vince McMahon and brings ECW back to life with stars like Rob Van Dam, Sabu, Tommy Dreamer, and the Sandman, and to join the war, with RVD eventually receiving a WCW World title shot at the Unforgiven pay-per-view. Rising WCW star Chuck Palumbo steps up to Kurt Angle, and Edge and Benoit's rivalry continues over from the King of the Ring, as Edge steps up to challenge the dual champion. And at the Raw before Unforgiven, Edge challenged and defeated Chris Benoit inside the Hell in a Cell to become the WCW United States Champion for the first time. Just days before Giant and Taker go to war as well inside the Hell in a Cell. At Unforgiven, Diamond Dallas Page beats Tommy Dreamer. Chuck Palumbo picks up the biggest win of his career when he beats Kurt Angle. The Undertaker gets his revenge on the Giant inside Hell in a Cell. Rob Van Dam puts on the fight of his life but still comes up short against Booker T. And in the main event, The Rock beats Triple H, Chris Jericho, and Stone Cold Steve Austin to set the record to become the superstar who's held the WWF Championship for the most times, with the most reigns at 7 now. So real quick, again, just going to showcase off Unforgiven for those of you a little bit here. Show off the undercard. You guys get an idea what might have been happening there. And next up, we are going to be building up to No Mercy. So With The Rock now holding the WWF title, he would look to lead the WWF to victory against WCW, but Stone Cold Steve Austin wouldn't back down and wanted his gold back. Shane McMahon would put a bounty on The Undertaker's head, which would be accepted by Chris Benoit. Triple H was hunting for Rhino, after, of course, Rhino cost him his WWF Championship, and Chris Jericho and DDP proved to be a thorn in each other's sides as they both cost each other a shot at the World Championship by trying to one-up each other. Even ending up with their own dueling reality shows. I don't know, shows on what would you call those? Pretty much they would create their own shows, the highlight reel and the Diamond Lounge, as they continued to just one up each other. Kane would return to confront the Giant, and tensions begin to rise between Edge and Christian. Also, Rob Van Dam would get one more shot at Booker T and the WCW World Championship. On the Nitro before No Mercy, The Undertaker would get his hands on Ric Flair to ensure that Flair would not get involved in his match at No Mercy. We would also see, at No Mercy, Christian cheat to beat his former tag team partner and brother, Edge, to become the United States Champion. The Giant would go on to beat Kane. Rhino wins the biggest match of his career in a match against Triple H. The Undertaker beats Chris Benoit to capture his first and only reign as the Intercontinental Championship, taking the IC title away from WCW finally. RVD comes up short once again against Booker T. The Rock and Stone Cold steal the show with the WWF Championship, but still, at the end of the night, The Rock remains the WWF Champion. So, that's Unforgiven. We had our best match of the night. As I said, they stole the show. Rock and Austin got a 100 rating, but how can you not get a 100 rating when you're The Rock and Stone Cold? I feel like it's almost a given. So next up, we move on to, I believe it's Survivor Series. Yep, and Survivor Series is a biggin. All right. The next night on Monday Night Raw, Shane McMahon had declared that they had taken out the trash that was ECW and had challenged his father to War Games at Survivor Series, with the stipulation that being that if Team WCW would win this time, that they would be allowed to enter into the Royal Rumble for the first time ever. Of course, WCW gambled it all because if they lost, the war would be over. Over the next few weeks, the teams for both WWF are filled. The teams for both the WWF and WCW are filled, I should say, with The Undertaker chosen as the captain for Team WWF, with Kane, Test, and Albert and ECW's RVD following under him. As for the WCW side, Chris Benoit and Ric Flair would co-captain the team, leading the Giant and the Steiner brothers into the pay-per-view. Also on the build to Survivor Series, DDP would beat Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle. DDP would beat Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle, and Chris Jericho. I don't know what the hell I was typing in here at this moment, but okay, never mind. I see what I typed in. Sorry, guys. Sometimes I messed it up. So DDP would beat Chris Benoit, and Kurt Angle would beat Chris Jericho. That's what I was trying to say. DDP didn't beat Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle. So Diamond Dallas Page would beat Chris Benoit to earn a shot at the WWF Championship, and Kurt Angle would beat Chris Jericho to earn a shot at the WCW Championship at the pay-per-view. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Rhino would beat the Hardy Boys to win the WWF Tag Team titles, and on Sunday Night Heat, just hours before Survivor Series would begin, Test was attacked by the Steiner brothers and injured, thus taken out of War Games and leaving Team WWF to scramble for a replacement for him. Kind of like they did at the InVasion pay-per-view when you think about it. Chris Jericho, who has been lobbying to join Team WWF over the past couple weeks, but denied at every time, tries one last time that a test has been taken out, but once again was denied as Team WWF apparently has already found the replacement for Test. It was also on this night that Jericho, we didn't see the last of Jericho on this night because he didn't take being, turned away by Team WWF too lightly, because it is on this night that Jericho decided that only he's going to care about himself as he came out and helped Christian retain the U.S. Championship and aligned with the young upstart, taking him under his wing as his protege. And then he also went out to call out WCW's Goldberg, who had previously been revealed on Nitro that Shane McMahon had hired Goldberg despite the high stakes on at the pay-per-view. That's how confident Shane McMahon was that our Team WCW was going to win. So Jericho calls out Goldberg at the pay-per-view, and that sets that up for a little bit in the future. But where in the blue hell did I leave off on? There we go. So The Rock would end up retaining his championship against Diamond Dallas Page on the night, and the two would walk away with a newfound respect for each other despite being WWF and WCW superstars. But also on this night, Kurt Angle will become not only was he the first ever superstar to win first ever WWF superstar to win a WCW title, but he's also the first ever superstar to win the WCW World Championship and be a WWF superstar when he beat Booker T for the championship. As we move on to War Games, though, Triple H is revealed to have taken Test's place in the War Games, but at the end of the night, it was Team WCW who would still walk away victorious in a hard-fought battle, thus earning their spot in the Royal Rumble. And there was no backstabbing, no traitors, no nothing. WCW won fair and square on this night. So before we keep moving on, I'm going to go ahead showcase some of the Survivor Series pay-per-view for you guys. Hopefully this doesn't, really kind of like put a halt in things as I do it, but it's kind of hard going back and forth from a phone and a computer, having to read this script. So next up, we find ourselves at the final pay-per-view of the year 2001, and that being Armageddon. So Triple H would explain on the next night of Raw that he didn't have a change of heart. He wasn't there to help Team WWF because he's a WWF guy. He only helped Team WWF because he was promised a shot at the WWF Championship at the next pay-per-view, Armageddon, by Vince McMahon. Goldberg would make his WCW re-debut on Nitro, but things didn't go quite as planned for Goldberg as Chris Jericho would jump in from behind and bloody the superstar. And over the next few weeks, Jericho and his new partner/protege, Christian, would continue to play mind games with Goldberg. A tactic that would honestly come back to bite them in the ass, as on the final Nitro of the year 2001, Goldberg had his first match since coming back, is what I'm trying to say, to WCW. Golly. And that, unfortunately, would be against Christian, and he would make quick work of Chris Jericho's protege on his way to Armageddon. And then at the pay-per-view itself, he would also find himself against Chris Jericho finally, where he would also make quick work of his longtime rival in Chris Jericho. Along with Goldberg's debut at Armageddon, we would see The Undertaker, Kurt Angle, and The Rock all retain their championships in show-stealing matches against Chris Benoit, Booker T, and Triple H, and that would end up earning the WWF and Armageddon the pay-per-view show of the year. So I didn't mean to say the pay-per-view show of the year. It was pretty much would earn the WWF and the Armageddon pay-per-view the show of the year, pretty much, is what I'm going at. Also, the WWF would also end the year with the Company of the Year award, the Match of the Year award with their match against The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin at No Mercy, and along with both Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler earning the color commentator and announcer of the year. Also, WCW's Diamond Dallas Page would win the Veteran Wrestler of the Year, so WCW also walked away with an award at the end of the year as well. But we move on to the new year, but before we can move on to the new year, let me go ahead and showcase Armageddon for you, what would end up being the show of the entire year of 2001, which is crazy because it's technically the final show of the year 2001. So they blew it out of the water. They saw everything every other show was doing and was like, we can do it better. So into the new year, we start building up for the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. And as we start the new year, The Undertaker made his intentions very clear that he didn't think that The Rock was doing a good job leading the WWF as its champion and was looking to take the mantle as WWF team captain along with The Rock's WWF championship, and he wasn't going to let Triple H or anyone stand in his way. And that included his championship responsibilities as Intercontinental Champion. And for a man who was built all around respect, The Undertaker decided to show his respect to the WWF Intercontinental Championship and decided to step down as champion and allow 4 rising stars to fight over the championship, who over the next couple of weeks we would find out would be Christian, Rob Van Dam, Rhino, and Jeff Hardy. Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle would renew their rivalry, but this time over the WCW World Championship because it was time for the King of the Ring to cash in on his guaranteed championship opportunity. And on our first stop on the road to WrestleMania, we saw Rhino win his first ever Intercontinental Championship, WCW capture more WWF championships when Daphne won the Women's Championship from Lita, and the Steiners beat Test and Albert for the WWF Tag Team titles. But the most important WCW championship stayed around the waist of WWF when Kurt Angle would beat Chris Benoit, and The Undertaker would take the mantle of team captain from The Rock as he would beat down and take down the Great One and become the WWF World Champion. And then we have the Royal Rumble match. And in the Royal Rumble match, Goldberg would set the record for the most eliminations after he eliminated half the participants in the Battle Royal until a bitter Stone Cold tossed him out after being eliminated by Goldberg a little earlier on. As we neared our final entrant at number 30, Chris Jericho, Triple H, and WCW's Diamond Dallas Page stood in the ring as the lights went out, and Sting made his WCW/WWF debut and enters the Royal Rumble for the first time. As Jericho and Diamond Dallas Page would be tossed out, and then not long after that, Triple H is tossed out finally, and we would see WCW Sting win the Royal Rumble and use this to stamp his ticket to WrestleMania for the first time ever. So next up will be No Way Out, our final pay-per-view before WrestleMania. And before we get to that, I'm going to go ahead and showcase you guys a little bit of the Royal Rumble pay-per-view as well. Hopefully I'm not moving too fast when I do that as well. Like, that would just make it, completely defeat the purpose of me reading off this stuff. And then having to halt myself to do that scrolling up thing, but you can't even read it. Anyway, and as we made our way to No Way Out, Sting would use this Rumble win to his advantage, as he earned a shot at the WCW World Championship and would go on to face and beat Kurt Angle for the championship, making it a WCW title versus WWF title at WrestleMania against The Undertaker, who defeated The Rock once again on this night. Also, Goldberg called his shot after taking care of business against the Giant earlier in the night. He waited until after Stone Cold's match against Chris Jericho and Christian, along with Rhino, where he would make it clear that Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania was next. No Way Out was also the night where Shane McMahon had explained it all. He explained his entire plan, all from the beginning. SmackDown was apparently going to be Shane McMahon's show, but his father had second thoughts. Feeling like his dad didn't trust him, Shane went out to prove his father wrong with avenging the treatment of his mother. Avenging the treatment of his mother, I should say. He purchased WCW and invaded the WWF and slowly took over from taking the show that was supposed to be his, all the way to taking mistreated talent and investing and buying out the contracts of bigger stars, including the NWO. The New World Order on this night would take Vince McMahon out, and now we move towards WrestleMania. Sting has, and I can't really show you guys WrestleMania, we're not there, so I'm just going to end this off right here. As Sting has brought The Undertaker into question over the past couple weeks, saying how this new biker version can't and won't beat him, and the only way Taker has a chance is if he reverts back to the old dead man. Stone Cold Steve Austin has accused Goldberg of being a carbon copy of him from WCW all the way to his bald head. Triple H has requested the aid from a longtime friend and fellow founder of D-Generation X, that being Shawn Michaels, to help him in this war against the New World Order. Kurt Angle looks to finally get his hands on the Nature Boy in a submission match, and both the ownership of WCW and the WWF is on the line when Vince McMahon teams with The Rock to take on Shane McMahon and Booker T. All that happens at WrestleMania 18, and that is the too long didn't watch for WrestleMania, or for the entire Invasion angle. Hopefully it made sense. Hopefully it wasn't boring. Hopefully it didn't drag on, because, it's kind of boring just looking at TEW. I know, but, yeah, let me know what you guys think, to be honest. I sat down and I had to but I went through all the past shows, and I even watched some of the old videos to kind of gauge an idea of what I was doing at that time, to give you guys an idea of what was going on throughout the entire Invasion. So let me know what you guys think about that. My name's been OMG, WTF, LOLFTW, BRB. The Sunday Night Super Show will be uploaded at midnight tomorrow, November 18th, 2018. So it'll be the Sunday Night Super Show at midnight, and WrestleMania 18 will go up probably around noon tomorrow as well, right before I go to work. So that's kind of the plan. And yeah, I will see you guys then. Hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have, do me a favor, comment, like, subscribe if you haven't already. And don't you forget, we might have already given away 2 copies of TEW, but we have 1 more copy to give away of Total Extreme Wrestling. All you got to do is predict who you think's going to win at WrestleMania 18. I uploaded a video yesterday. Check out that video. The match card's on there. Go ahead and comment, and you could win yourself a copy of TEW. Just saying. Also, If you want to go ahead and buy the game for yourself, go ahead and use the code TEWOMG to get $5 off your purchase of Total Extreme Wrestling 2016. But as always, my name has been OMGWTF, LOTWBRB. I will see you guys tomorrow, Sunday for the Heat Super Show and WrestleMania 18. So until then, have a good one, guys.